Chris. First podcast. A little bit nervous.
Very nervous.
Nervous, yeah, same nervous.
It's like fighting this.
Yeah, so to be fair, I'm probably more nervous doing this than I am fighting. I'm very used to that. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Things are going well, so.
Yeah, so for everyone who's listening, obviously first podcast that we're going to try and do Dojo to Tatami. Do you want to maybe introduce yourself for anyone who doesn't know?
Yeah, of course. I'm Chris Cray. Fought down in KGB. Been with KGB for over 30 years now. Instructor at Malvern Karate Club. Full-time instructor. Ex-European champion, junior and senior, I think it was. And also now the KGB Scotland coach for Kumite, alongside Graham Lenny. So, like I said, things are busy at the moment, but it's getting better. It's going well, so I'm pleased with everything.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, and he's definitely downplayed himself there. There's a few more achievements that he hasn't mentioned.
They're the important ones for now.
They're the key ones to you. Yeah, and obviously, again, for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Joe Rawcliffe, 5th Dan, KGB Karate, so I've been about 26 years now. 2 times world and 1 times European champion, individual, and then some obviously team ones in there as well, along with domestic tournaments. But yeah, it's all fun and games, and we're just about to like sort of restart the year, aren't we? So I think you were down at Scotland, up at Scotland
last weekend. Yeah, that went well. Squad's getting bigger, squad's getting better, all enthusiastic. Really pleased with how that's going.
Yeah, I can see an improvement since probably before COVID, where there wasn't as many, and obviously between yourself coming in, and obviously I'll give Graham and Bob and that are doing a good job of sort of promoting it, and it seems to be picking up. So
it's definitely going in the right direction.
Yeah,
like I said, I'm noticing it myself now with regards to more people coming in, wanting to do better and being dedicated. That's the one thing we said. You can't be on a squad and wanting to be a little bit involved. You've got to be involved, and you've got to be doing better all the time.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's like the karate in general. If you don't, and it's probably any sport, if you don't dedicate yourself to it or dedicate enough, you're never gonna get to them levels. And
no, definitely not. Like I said, even in the club situation, we always try and tell our, all of our students, you've got to be training to get anywhere in what we're doing. It's a good standard out there in the competitions as well. There's good people there all the time, and you've got to try and be pushing up against these people. So at the end of the day, if you want what's best from it, then you've got to keep going. You've got to put your best into it. There's no half measures in it. Like if you half cook it, then you're not going to get much out of it. So no, it's really that simple.
Even the most talented, you can only that's only going to last so long, isn't it? Because there'll be someone else who's just as talented who wants it, and obviously that's where like you start to say. You say that cream rises to the top. That's normally what causes it's just that little bit of extra work and sensible work, clever work, but sort of getting into it. And then so I think Kata squad. Obviously, you went down to England Kata squad, didn't you? We had a few from the club.
Yeah. There was 3 who got on today. Again, done very, very well. Lost the squad. The standard of it. Again, the standard of the Kata squad's always been very, very high.
Yeah, definitely.
And again, I've seen a few of them over the years, and you can always see it's a very, very good level, and you can see why. You go away with the international team, and you see why so many people are doing well. You can see the level of training that clearly some people are putting into it. So there's a reason why, again, going back to what we were saying here, there's a reason why people are winning. It's because they're training hard, and you can tell when people are training hard.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think probably on there's 3-4 current or former like international champions on the squad at the minute, like individually. And then obviously there's team champions who have been part of the team that have won it. So like obviously we had a quite successful year as England last year with the Kata, which was nice to see. And then Kumite, England Kumite squad tomorrow, so I'll have my gi on and doing my bit.
And I won't. And I won't for the change. So
I suppose from that, do you ever miss the competing, the training that comes along with competing?
I wish I could train more. I think one of the issues with being a full-time instructor is people think, you just train all the time.
Yeah.
But the sad reality is when you were running around, running a club, but also running the business side, which I don't like to mention because to me it's not a business, even though it is because it's my livelihood. It's I do miss sort of being able to dedicate myself to a lot of training.
Yeah, definitely.
but again, that's probably one of the hazards of the job that doesn't sort of match up with, I think, what people think it is, you know. But again, at the same time, it's a very good living with regards to sort of the freedom you have, you know, in regard, I do what I love, so it's not really a job. You know, that's as simple as it is. You know, it's not a job because, again, I don't get up and go, oh, I've got to go to the club today, or oh, I've got to go all the way there to, you know, to Scotland to go and teach a session. Or, you know, I actually look forward to these things because, again, this was always sort of really the dream. I remember, again, you know, I know I'm going back here, probably even when I was about 12. I can remember being in school thinking, well, I know what I want to be when I'm older, so I don't really want to be here. Which is the complete wrong attitude to take.
Yeah.
But, you know, I knew from a long time that I always wanted to do something like this. And, and you know, thankfully, you know, 5-6 years ago now, I think it was, I took the plunge, and been a good thing.
It's mad to think you've been full time for 5-6 years. It doesn't. I remember we had the conversation when you were thinking about it. It doesn't feel like it was that long ago.
Well, again, I mean, I have to thank my mate Luke for that. You know, to be honest.
Yeah.
I feel like at the time when I was working on site with Luke, and he said to me, you know, I think I had to sit down with him and said, listen, I'm thinking about going full time with the karate. And he rang me the next day and said, we'll go for a coffee. I said, all right, yeah. I'm okay. Went for a coffee. He said, right, I'm letting you go from work. And at first I was like, oh.
Thought you were a mate.
At first I was like, what am I going to do? But I think instantly, straight away, I knew what he was doing. It was a supportive push. It wasn't anything like he didn't want me there or he took the decision badly. I knew it weren't that. I could tell straight away, you know, it was like that thing where he was going, right, I know this is what he wants to do. And Luke's a clever fella. Luke is one of them people, he won't sit there. He wouldn't have let me make that step if he didn't believe it was possible. So, you know, I have him to thank for that, based on the fact that he pushed me at the right time. You know, I was sort of skirting around the edges going, maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't, see how it goes over the next few months. But them next few months would never have been an end.
No, I think you need to like really thrust yourself in, don't you?
Well, he basically just booted me through it. I went, right, go do it. And you know what, it was, one thing I'll say in that respect is, it's not just me that I feel has benefited from being a full-time instructor. I think the club has benefited from that as well. You know, and other things, you know, the likes of yourself coming in, Rhiannon, Beth, Catherine coming into the club, that's been a massive boost. And obviously the club's benefited from that. And I hope that the likes of yourselves have benefited being part of the club also, because again, I feel like the collective that it's made has been massive in my view anyway. So I'm really
it's been really nice coming in, because obviously sort of welcomed in. And it's very much, it's different than Hellwood. Hellwood was very, not saying we don't do competition, we do, but it's very much based around probably the four you just mentioned. And obviously a couple of others were like, everyone got along, but it didn't seem, I don't know the best way to put it. It sounds like a negative and it's not, but it was very much, we turned up, we trained and we went home, and it seems now more, the club's got a very different sort of atmosphere. Which is obviously really good, and the standard of training's just as good. So obviously there's no loss on that side, but obviously we've been able to sort of get something a little different from it, which is really good to see. And I think definitely you can see the club's improved from you go, like again, from being outside at the time to see like the development that happened when you made that sort of transition. You start seeing more and more people get like doing better in tournaments and looking better. So like, I firmly believe if one person magically gets better, that's probably on them. But if a lot of people do it, there's obviously something going on in the background.
Do you know what though? I would put that a lot down to the work that goes into the club as well. Not just from me. I would say, you know, the people training. It's a massive thing. You know, and the people helping me with the club. You know,
the community is it?
Yeah, it is. And do you know what, the club always has been. But at the you know, at the same time, like I said, going back to the word collective, I think it has been that from the off. And again, I've always had the people behind me to help with that. So it's a great club to be in. Obviously, pleased to be there.
So I think we planned a couple of sort of questions that we ask each other, and obviously we'll float out to other people eventually. So if I open with one, obviously we'll bounce back and forth. Yeah. So, what's your most memorable karate moment? A tough one, I suppose.
It just depends. It depends what we're talking about. I mean,
however
you know,
go.
there's always one thing after another. You go for your first grade, and I can't really remember that, but you know, I can remember not passing a couple of gradings back then when it was Billy Crystal used to take the gradings. It never used to be temp and you moved along to a temp to move along to a temp. It used to be a temp then a full pass, so you had to pass that belt. So you know, that was a lot harder to take at the time. But there's little things like that. But then obviously as you get older, I won the nationals, and you know, that was my first. I think I was 11. I was like, that was a good moment. I think, you know, that was being in the Birmingham Arena, the NIA. I was like, this is, you know, that was one of the best places. Like, you know, I miss that place more than anything, because
if
again,
anyone doesn't know, that's where they used to do gladiators, and like they felt like especially for the nationals final, because it used to be half the room was split off, wasn't it? And you'd have the spotlight, so there was one mat, sort of in a semicircle, domed in with the light. It was like really, especially early on, because the lights went at one point. They just stopped, they'd stop getting used. But I remember like my first sort of nationals final was under the spotlights, and it was like, whoa, it felt like really big time, which if you weren't used to it, because it was the only tournament that happened at. It was a massive sort of like, whoa. Yeah,
it was the big, that nationals was the big time. Anyway. I remember everything about the nationals. The selling point from Tommy, my old instructor before he left me, his selling points for the nationals to the kids every single year was the gladiators are there. So in my mind, before I ever went, I thought, right, I'm going to the same place where they do the gladiators. So I'm going to see all the stuff up. I thought that's what it was like. It was never there, obviously. It was never there. That was in my head. So, you know, I remember my first nationals, and I think going to watch it the first time, I think it was Ronnie Christopher who won it. And I remember it being packed out. And obviously it was like, wow, this is it for me. You know, I was only like a green purple belt probably at the time, but I was thinking, this is where I want to be. That sort of level. You know, the nationals were the one, but again, I'd say the peak moment was, I'd say the year 2007, 2008. You know, that whole couple of years was a good one, because obviously
it's when you won the Europeans.
I won the Europeans individually.
But we won the team as well, didn't you?
But we won the team for the Europeans, but we also won the world's team in 2007. Yeah. And we were fighting, you know, we fought some good teams. Russia, we were getting beat 2-0 with them, and we come back to win 3-2. That was, you know, the semi-finals against the final. Might be wrong there, it might have been the quarter, but whatever it was. But then we fought America in the final, and I think every fight ended on it. But you know, when I look back, I think that was sort of the first time England had won the Worlds since sort of the Brennan era. Even earlier than that. I think that's 91. I think it was 91, because I think in 95 Sweden won it. But I think I might be wrong there. But yeah, I think, you know, and just to be able to say that we'd won, you know, we were the next ones from that era. You know, forgive me if I'm wrong there, but that's what I'm thinking in my head anyway. So, you know, 2007, Matt Price was in that team. You know, he was a good captain to me. You know, Michael Davison, John, and Duffy. You know, it felt like a perfect team for me at the time, because again, it felt like it couldn't be stronger. It felt like if there was ever a time we were going to win a World Championships, it was them. And, you know, I think we rode on that. You know, the Europeans, I certainly rode on that, because, you know, the Europeans then was 2 months later, and we done it again. We beat Germany in the team again, 3-2, and again it was a tough Germany team at that point. You know, loads of good ones, and I fought Christian Gerner in the final. I would probably say that was, from a competitive viewpoint, 2007 was my, you know, the Europeans 2007 was a pinnacle for me to say, you know, to see Matt lifted again the year before that. You know, to see again. I've always took that little bit of inspiration from people before me who've won things and gone, well, fancy a bit of that. And then, you know, I seen, you know, the competition, and I thought Christian getting, and I watched Christian throughout the fights, throughout the day, and I just seen him winning 1-0, and he'd score a point, and he'd just go missing, and no one could get near him. And he won most rounds 1-0, and I remember watching, thinking, wow. So straight away in my head, I was thinking tactical. You know, if I do get him, then I know I can't give him much time. You know, and lo and behold, he's 1-0 up. You know, we fought, and you know, I think I got a couple of warnings before we engaged again, and I think he caught me cold and he scored. I was like, okay, fair enough, you know. All right. I thought, just don't do anything daft. there's about 30 seconds left, and there's so much happened in that 30 seconds, so I just pushed them down, pressed. And in the end I scored, and it was sort of, I wouldn't say it was him who lost his head, but he sort of fell into my trap then of like, he had to come to the counter puncher, and that's when he started falling onto shots, and thankfully I won it. And then fought him in the team about an hour later, and same result again. I think I scored it on him in the team. So, and again, seeing him compete over the years, watching people like him was probably inspirational as well. You know, to actually fight him was inspirational. To to beat him also was like.
I think he won it.
He won it the year
later. Like 3 times.
He was ridiculous. You know,
because he won ridiculous Crawley,
efforts. He won Crawley.
I remember that because that was my first international. So obviously watching.
I remember watching him and thinking, wow. You know, there was certain people over my time of competing. I watched them and went, they're ones to watch. They're ones to see what they're doing. And to be honest, in fairness to Christian Gainer, it felt like what he was doing at the time was probably revolutionary. I felt like he was more of a futuristic fighter as opposed to what I was like, where it was a little bit more static, not much movement. But again,
work, isn't it,
the style made the fight, I think, and in the end it worked for me. So So what about yourself? What's your
probably something
memorable moments?
There's lots of little ones that I'd say.
Plenty.
Your first nationals was always like a very special one. So that was obviously great, and that. This might sound really like it wasn't the first tournament I won, but it was like it sort of kicked off my competition success. Like from there, I pretty much won the vast majority of things I've been in since then. But that was the very first one. I got disqualified in the Grand Slam like a couple of months earlier. But probably the one I remember the Europeans when I won that in 2015.
2015.
It was weird because obviously I won 2 worlds and you think they probably supersede, but I think
winning at home.
Yeah, it was the fact it was a domestic tournament. It was my first international gold, individually anyway, and with the other 2, we'd made the team final, so I kind of like, I got the individuals, was like, oh, I've won, I've got to fight again. So I just kind of switched that off and was like, well, you can't sit in this. Yeah, I'm happy, but I've got to fight again.
Yeah, that does help. Yeah. That does help. You know, that's the one thing I felt in 2007 was like, listen, can't sit back now. You know, and I was on a high. So the thing was, it just kept going and going and going.
Yeah, so, well, obviously, like the world ones, it was great. It was obviously worked really well. We won both the team finals as well, but obviously sort of just rolled with that momentum. But I suppose from an individual perspective, I couldn't allow myself to really take in what I'd done. Like, oh, you've won your first world championships, but you need to actually, you're going to fight again in half an hour, so you can't be like over the moon, like let your head go. You need to like stay focused. Whereas when I'd won the individuals, it was a little different because we were out the team. I don't even know if we medalled, to be honest. I don't think we did. So it was just sort of that was done. Like my day's over. Yeah. So it was just sort of like I've won, and it was just sort of that's it. And it was obviously that was like
you could live. Yeah, you could
take it in. Yeah. I think it was weird. I was like I fought James McGorry in the final. I fought like another English lad in the final, and we took it to the wire. It went 3-3. And then like each score, there was like 2 seconds on the clock. I remember looking at the clock. 2 seconds left, and I went, I'm not doing an extension. So I just went in off the line. Obviously, I think like it's a drill we always used to do. I think as a commie, he's gone, I know exactly what's going on. He met me in the middle, so it was sort of like a bit of a weird way to finish it. Instead of the tactics had been done all fight. It was like, no, the gunfight.
Tactics go out the window at this point. Yeah,
it's a gunfight. Let's just see who can get the best of each other in this case. And fortunately for me, it went my way. Obviously, I don't think Jay can complain. He won the world championships. Like
Jay done very, very well.
Jay's had a very good career.
Very good fighting brain, didn't he, Jay?
Yeah, definitely.
Watching Jay compete, you could see it was all there, in the mind. You could see he was constantly doing it in his head. That fight was going on in his head all the time, where he was looking at it, and that's why I think
him and you have very similar skill set in that, like, you read people better than most. Obviously, everybody can read other people. Like you can tell what was going on a lot better than others. So you sort of, that one's a feign, this one's a real thing, and it's just sort of like, I can counter, or I can, like, Jay could counter, or he'd do like a slip to Joyce. He'd have that little slip, and he'd just pull the punch, a little shine, and he just popped them after it, and you just like.
Yeah, he was very good at that as well.
Yeah.
Seen him do that a few times, just where they thought they're going to score in, and he just about move and then bang.
Yeah. So I think we were just speaking before about everyone like has their thing that like sort of separated them out and like they utilised. And obviously that was probably Jay's thing. Yeah, it's just it's very different now. Styles are very, very different, but you have to just make it work for you. Like you said, about between you and Christian, styles completely different. But can you make that little thing work for you?
Well, the pressing, like I said, the pressing thing with him was the one that worked for me. But obviously making sure that I didn't go too close, because again, watching him all day, seeing him picking people off in that little position, like that was, you know.
Well, I fought him when I was 18. So it was probably in 2010, and we were in the team final, and it was 2-2, and he ended up beating me. And I remember, obviously I knew exactly who he was, and I'd just turned 18. Well, I was junior, got stepped onto the men's team, and I remember fighting him, going, oh my God, it's Christian Gay, like, because like he'd won. If I remember correctly, he won 2008. I think he won. He got disqualified in the final in 2009. I think he might have I think he medalled in 2010. So it was sort of like, that's all I'd seen. Just like, oh my God, this guy. And like, I actually went a point up, and I thought like, right, I'm getting on my bike now. There was 40 seconds on the clock, and I felt like I did about 30 laps of the mat, and I seen the clock and going in 10 seconds. I was like, wow. And then from like nowhere, he just come in, and just hit me. I was like, okay, I did not know somebody. I did not know somebody could cover ground like that. And I think my head just dropped. It was Ajime, and as soon as we were Ajime, I stepped off and just hit me again. It was done. I was like,
do you know, it's funny you should say that, because I remember another German fighter, Andreas Horn, and a similar thing happened. I fought him in a team in 2006, and I was only 21. I think I'd just been beaten like the last 8 of the individuals. So I was flying, like, you know, first one as a senior, got beat by one of the Spanish lads. He just come flying off the line, and it was like an ouch, but the referees are always going to go one way or the other. So he went his way, which is fine, fair enough. But then we went into the team, and I don't think I had a good time fighting in the team. Fought a lot of good, experienced people. First one was Andreas Horn. Now, over the years, I've become like a little bit of a historian of like competitions gone by over the years, who won what, when they won, you know. And Andreas Horn. And there was a big thing about him at the time. 2006, he'd come back for the team, and this was the one and only time we'd seen him. Like, certainly, but he'd won the world in '97. I think he might have won it previous as well. And I remember fighting him, thinking, "It's okay, let's just see what I can do here." And we went in for a clash. He scored. I was like, "I'm all right, fair enough." Felt like I scored. He probably did. But at the time I was thinking, okay, fair enough. And I was fighting him, thinking, just try and get back into this fight. And I could feel him closing in ground, and I could feel him pressing and thinking. And I made the silly mistake. I'd done something that you probably would do at a local, a kid would do at a local competition. I'll throw a sort of half washy at you, and he'll just move back. No. Yeah. He just put his fist right on my face. And in fairness to him, it was that well controlled, I hardly felt it.
Yeah.
It was probably upon them, in fairness to him. If they really wanted to, I don't think they did. But at the same time, I thought, wow. Yeah. At that point, I was like, wow. So that's what it's like being a world champion. You've got that sort of experience, and he just covered the ground. I remember I was being like that. I just had to go, well done. Thanks very much. And that was it. But a good experience. To step on the area with someone like him. I'd look back on the past and seen videos of him fighting and thinking, oh, well, now this is very real, I'm up against them,
Yeah, I think it's always tough, especially when you're young and you're stepping up. Like I got put into the men's team from 18, so obviously 18 to 20 before I was senior, and we had a good team. England's always had a good team, but we had so we were making a lot of finals, and we were fighting we were essentially fighting that Germany team in every final. It just kept happening. Like I think there was a phase where, obviously, before I got in the men's team, you were winning it, like when you were more of a part of it, and then they sort of took the helm. I think we had a few people move out, and we got like we had a younger team at the time, and we just couldn't quite get it, because I remember Chicago, we got to the final, and I'm going out fighting last, and the guys just won the world championships. I'm 19 years old, and I've got to beat the world champion.
I remember Chicago very, very well.
Yeah.
I went out first, they got kicked in the head. I remember being heartbroken at the time, and I've watched the video back over and over, and I thought, you know what, he wasn't going to catch me, and then he did.
Makes you feel any better in Liverpool, the same guy caught me with the same kick.
Yeah.
But he never got it. They never give it because I just took it.
Schneider, very good.
Yeah.
I remember fighting him thinking, you know,
Class.
strong lad, he was very good, and I was thinking,
Yeah.
And you know, and the reality is, I'd come back from an injury. I probably shouldn't have been. I probably weren't quite ready for that level of competition. But we were in the team.
You obviously were. It's just maybe not like at
that moment,
like
so, you know,
point. But like it's like.
But you know, that was the one thing. You know, I was seeing his attacks coming. He was making big feints. I just couldn't get in close. But then that one kick, he threw it. Right.
Yeah. Like I say, he was obviously very good at it. Cause like I've seen him, and he caught me with it. And I seen it when it was like here, and then it just hit me, and I was like,
it was one of them things where I just thought, well, do you know what? He's kicked me in the head in a world final. There's 4 lads behind me. Hopefully they can pull it back.
Yeah,
but
that's what I mean. That's what I mean. I went out in that fight, and we needed the nip on for me to get a draw. And the guy I'm fighting just won the world, and it was just like
they all played it well, didn't they? That was a great final.
Yeah,
it
was. Yeah, and I think I remember I actually ended up winning the fight 2-1, but obviously that wasn't enough. Yeah. And on the first, he scored first, but I'd gone in and we clashed, and then I kicked him in the head. And obviously everyone erupted because it was like, oh, and then obviously we looked at the flag and they looked like that, giving him the point, and it was like, I think there was almost a level of disappointment when I got my second point because it wasn't a nip on. Like, oh, it's over. Yeah. Really strange way of like.
Do you know what though? These what sort of make showboat on competition. I think, you know, exciting in its own way. You know.
Yeah.
I know you know you can see a lot of people, you know, moving around, not really doing much for 2 minutes, but that explosive thing can happen. I think that can make it exciting. So. Again, I think what you're saying there, it's that disappointment. You know, it has a bit of everything. It has a drama in its own right, doesn't it? You know, show with regards to that. You know, it might not have all the flashy techniques all the time.
Yeah.
But once something explodes into life, it's like,
yeah. You said, big thing is it can just be ended.
That's it.
You make one mistake, and someone like and they don't even have to hit you with something. I say for not like they don't have to kick you in the head or hit you, like you go and they just hit you in the head, and you go. The reality is you'd knock you out if you wanted. Obviously, that's not what we do, but that's
the skill, isn't it?
And you go like, and the fight's done, and like a tiny lapse in concentration can end it. That's why you see so much of it when you're away, because obviously everybody's at that level where they pick up on the little lapses, and that's why there's so many hit when you go away. Cause everyone's fast, everyone's experienced.
I say this to all our new ones, you know, going to competition, especially international events. You know, you've got to treat every fight like it's the nationals final.
It's a final, yeah.
Because you know, at the end of the day, it's the best of like every country. Yeah. So every person you're potentially fighting, you know, whatever it is, they've probably been in the final of the nationals. They've just won the final of the nationals and so on and so forth. So, you know, if they've all got that experience, I always like to try and push that and say, you know, always put these things in your head that, you know, you've got to be at your absolute best, even for the first round.
No gimmies anymore.
No, not in international.
Gimmies anymore, but you're like, you've got to be on.
You're not sort of getting like, you're not getting a walkthrough. You hardly, you know, it's very rare you get a walkthrough, but at international level. You know, I certainly can't remember many.
No,
you know,
no. Like I mean, when we're fighting, it will seem easy, and it just might have been a good day, but
a good day for you, bad day for them.
Yeah, but like it's not necessarily like you could run that fight back like with that person, and it won't be easy because like there's not like this huge skill gap. It's just maybe again they've had that lapse, and you've been right on it. So a few other things. Obviously, we went down a proper rabbit hole, but that was nice.
That was it. Yeah, that was.
I prefer that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's what a good amount of time on the podcast.
Yeah, I've got no clue how long we've been going, to be honest. Yeah. So I'm going to blend two into one.
Yeah.
So why did you start karate, and what would your first memory be?
Both of them sort of happened together. Both of them happened together. So I started karate basically because my dad wanted to box.
Yeah.
I think being from Liverpool,
history of boxing.
Yeah. So my dad went to the Bulldog, and that was a renowned gym at the time. And he asked about me joining there, and they said, and how old is he? He said 7. He went, right, we don't take on anyone under the age of 10. He said, take him to karate. There's one on Thomas Lane. If he still wants to box when he's 10, by all means bring him along. So anyway, my dad took me to Thomas Lane, which effectively was Malvern.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Tommy had a few places at the time, but he used Swan Side always where we were. But on a Saturday morning, he had Thomas Lane, and it was like a little old school hall, and it was ridiculously small, ridiculously cold. And I remember walking in there, and this was my first memory of it. I remember walking in there, and there was a lad from my junior school, a friend in junior school, who was just sat against the wall with a red belt on. He'd done karate for obviously a little bit longer than me.
Yeah.
So I think, even though I was nervous, I think everyone's nervous about going in for the first time. The fact that I seen a familiar face,
helped a lot.
straight away I was like, right, I feel alright here, because he's here, I can be here, then I'm alright with that. So, you know, them two are sort of, my dad wanted me to box, ended up taking me to karate. Thankfully the karate worked.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd have made a good boxer. My guard was always too low for that. But at the same time, like I said, you know, it was also good seeing someone who I went to school with there, and I think that had a decent, a calming effect, as opposed to going in there thinking, I don't know any of these people.
Yeah.
So you know, that was a good point.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, they're not quite as close, they're not massively apart. So again, similar thing, like I'm like an ADHD kid. I bounced off the walls, so it was like we need to get him into something. And my dad wanted me to box because he'd done a bit of boxing when he was a kid. And my mum wasn't having any of it. She was like, if anyone doesn't know, my mum's a nurse, and she was like, oh, brain injuries, and obviously she was having none of it because I was 6 years old. So I was still bouncing off the walls, and then my best mate in primary school said, I've just started karate, so I go on, I want to do karate. Turns out he didn't do karate, he did jiu-jitsu, and where it was in Kirby, there's a jiu-jitsu hall and then the sports centre literally like 6 feet away from each other. So probably on the same day, he's walking into this little hall on the side, and I went up into the sports centre and did karate, and he quit 2 weeks later, and obviously I'm still here 26 years.
It's funny you should say that though, about you said I was starting karate, because the amount of times someone says to me, and you probably get this, are you still doing the judo? Are you still doing the judo? Yeah, I'm still doing the judo. Yeah.
Or are you going to the Olympics? And I know it has just been in the last Olympics, but that question has been years, and you're like, that's not in the Olympics. And then they go, are you sure? And you're like, you're messing them, sure?
Pretty certain that I know that it's definitely not in the
Olympics. For 20 plus years. Like, I mean, in people's head, black belt's the pinnacle, and even like first dan, you're like, you know I'm way above that, and you're seriously questioning me if this is in the Olympics. Well, I think I know where my sport, but like, that's what happens. And then, I think the first notable memory was I was an orange belt, and I was due to grade, and again, like I say, I was a bit of a ADHD child, and I was horrendous. I don't know when the karate helped. I was doing loads of sports as a kid. I just didn't. I had too much energy, and I'm used to mess around in the club. I'm left-handed, so I used to get things mixed up, and I'd be chewing on my belt and everything. And then my instructor at the time, George Morrison, just sort of said to me, Dad, he can't grade. I don't know if it was, obviously I can't remember the conversation. I don't know if he's not ready or he messes too much, and I'm pretty sure it's the second one. So my dad kind of went, okay. Obviously that hurt at the time, because obviously you're 7 years old.
Every kid just wants a grade. Get your black belt. Get some black belts.
Yeah, and then I was like, I'm quitting, crying. And only because my dad was doing it. He'd started like 6 weeks after I did, and he was like, well, I'm going to go next week. So obviously like Monday come. I was like, okay, I'll go. And obviously like I sort of got over it. In a way it's weird, because it probably helped. Like I sort of found the form a bit after that. Like I remember going from a green belt, and I was the only one at that point in the club going for like that grade, so I had to get up and do the kata on my own. I was doing the whole, but like I think I'd found like, okay, I can't mess around, and probably got a little bit older and maybe a little bit more disciplined. So I mean, obviously with the quit, like it might have been bad, but it's worked out, so it obviously didn't hinder me.
It's worked out a little bit, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Definitely in your favour.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, if it's hindered me, it hasn't done too much.
No, definitely not.
And if it's helped, then it could have helped X amount. We don't know, I suppose, but that is what it is. So that's probably my first memory, really.
A few moments later.
So, apologies on the cut off. Apparently my phone or the app has got a storage capacity, and it sort of says we've maxed it out, even though I did sort of think that I'd sorted that. So we're back on. Fingers crossed we don't have any more issues with that. So I think we'd sort of finished. We were up to where like I'd finished my memory, and if you hadn't caught the end of it, I didn't quit karate. So because of that, I think we before we'd realised we'd cut off. We were talking about all the like light bulb moments that we've maybe had within our karate career. So Chris, do you want to sort of continue from where we were up to, and I'll just jump in went
So
right?
yeah, I had like light bulb moments and defining moments. I mean, both really much one of the same, but you know, one was doubt, but this one for me, it was like I was going to train at Harewood. You know, obviously I was at a stage 17, 18 where I was like, okay, well I really need now to up my training, especially if I want to be at the level of sort of going away regularly and competing. So went to train at Harewood, and you know, there was loads of good people there. The club was massive at the time, so you know, there was a good variety of people to train with. But what meant that, what also that was, you know, it wasn't always just Chris Thomas who you got to train with. You know, there was always someone else who you could train with and get just as good quality training with. And it wasn't always just point scoring, you know, which is effectively probably what I went for.
Yeah.
You know, so we went, and I was training, and it was Stephen Patterson who done like a very, very basic session, and I mean, it was just key on. But, you know, he really emphasised how hard we should be working with regards to the key on side of things. And it was a light bulb moment where I thought, yeah, you know, I could feel myself work, and I could feel myself, my body actually working harder than it probably ever has done at that point. Because again, with basics, especially when you know you're 17, you're thinking,
Formality.
you know, you're thinking you've got to do basics just because it's part of it. You know,
Yeah.
that effectively is a sad reality in my opinion. You know, once you start competing, and especially if you start winning, that becomes the main priority. You know, and I was at the time I was winning, you know, a few competitions. So, you know, key on wasn't that important to me. Admittedly, you know, it was it'd always been drilled into me. By the way, you know, that's what you need.
Yeah.
You know, but obviously when you start competing, that's what you want to do. You want to do competitive stuff. So when he done this session, I remember doing the session and thinking, yeah, this is what it's all about. I can understand now why everyone says what they say about the key on side of things.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it's so important. So I could remember actually doing it. That was a good point. That was a good moment for me. That, like I said, the actual training, the satisfaction I got from the training as well was good. Competitively, I had a couple of moments where, you know, I remember the Grand Slam. In fact, the Grand Slams have always been quite a good like indicator, even though, you know, you don't win medals and trophies, so to speak. It's more of a bragging rights to, you know, to say you won against you know, your other home nations, but also, you know, against even your own teammates. So I remember one year, you know, at the Grand Slam, I was on the edge of the area and I was ready to face Ross Edwards, who was on the Welsh team at the time. And I remember him, and he was quite robust. He was quite a tough lad, and I thought, you know, this is going to be a tough fight. But then I was sat there stressing out. I was thinking, you know, is this something I want to be doing for, you know, forever? Is this, you know, competition? Is this what it's about? And I was getting myself all stressed out. So I was on the edge of the area, and then you got on the area, and it was like none of them thoughts ever entered my head, and it was one of the best performances I've ever come away thinking, you know, and I think I might have won the Grand Slam that day. I think I may have won it that day. But again, it was that particular moment before that fight. I can always remember that vividly. I think, and it might not be a light bulb moment, but it was a defining moment that, yeah, actually, this is what I want. You know, this is what I want to do. One of my other favourite, you know, defining moments was when I got beat. I remember fighting John Bruce. Obviously, me and John had many fights over the years. We had quite a strong rivalry at the time, and I remember fighting again. John in a Grand Slam, and we went on the area and he scored, and it was just basically a case of then trying to chase him down, trying to corner him, trying to get that point back. And it wasn't Shobu Sambo, it was actually only Ippon, so, you know, it was only a 2-minute fight, but I think he scored early on and he managed to hold the points for quite a long time, and the fight finished, and I literally threw everything at him, and the way he defended that fight, you know, the way he was able to control that fight, I had nothing but admiration for it. Actually, you know, it was one of my favourite fights, to be honest. Even though I got beat, it was one of them fights where I could appreciate its actual, you know, the tactical, you know, warfare, so to speak. You know, he scored early on. I need to get it back. You know, it's what I lived for: scoring first and not, you know, making sure no one. And to see, you know, for actually to someone to do it to me and feel, you know, that frustration of trying to score, but there wasn't frustration of losing. It was a weird one, because I lost the fight, And again, I think it was Matt Price who come up to me at the end of the fight and went, that was an absolutely fantastic fight. And I think, remember at the time, that was another defining moment, you know, not light bulb, so to speak, but defining, thinking, yeah, you know, even if sometimes, you know, no one likes losing. I think, you know, if you're in a competitive field, in any situation, and you don't mind losing, I think it's time to call it a day. That's my opinion.
You're not doing it for that. You do it to win, and you can look back when you haven't won and kind of go, okay, and you appreciate what you did at the time. Like I say, it tends to, unless, like I say, you can accept it. You can get beat, and like when somebody beats you and you know you've lost, you can kind of go, okay.
Well, that was one of them. That was one of them moments. I remember throwing absolutely everything, thinking I've got to try and get this back now.
Yeah.
I think I was satisfied with that, you know, because again, going back to training, and you hear, I'll say it myself, I'd rather see someone lose by 2 points,
100%,
trying to win, than just accepting that that person scored. We dance out, and then that's the end of the fight. And you know, I remember at the time being, you know, satisfied. I tried to do enough at least. You know, obviously I didn't do enough, but I tried to do enough. But that was another good moment for me, even though I didn't win. You know, so again, it was good to see. You know, obviously that's John's quality. You know, fighting for years, and you know, he always probably brought me up as well. You know, he was a little bit older than me, and you know, I had to, you know, sort of chase him in regards. You know, he was a little bit older. He was on the scene a little bit longer, and you know, that particular fight was a good one to think back on and think, yeah, this is quite a defining moment. So yeah, I quite enjoyed that one.
Yeah.
So what about you? What about yourself?
I think again, there's sort of there's phases sometimes where like something shifts and you go, okay, I see the difference. So I remember going to the Lancaster, the summer camp in Lancaster when I was 13, and probably obviously you do the odd course. It was the first time I'd done a lot of training outside of the club.
It's a tough one as well, isn't it?
Yeah, but
it's a tough week of training.
It was a lot outside, and I think at the time I was going to do my second dan, so do like the extra classes. And when I went, there was 2 people going for the second dan, me and somebody else, and you had like two senior instructors, so it was basically 1-to-1.
Yeah.
And like I got put through it, and I was made up. And then George obviously didn't let me grading. He didn't let me grade then either. The second time he did it to me, sort of said, no, I don't like it. Sort of see me, I don't think you're ready. And I ended up doing it the next year. And I remember obviously having that conversation with, I think it was with Sensei Brennan. So it was like, oh, and he said, well, okay, how old are you? I was 13. I said, okay, so are you going to go to squad? I hope you go to squad next year. Obviously, you had to be 14 at the time, but obviously I was 14 by squad. And I think that was one of them. You go, okay, this is how hard. I trained hard, but you're sort of like, oh, this is how hard I can train. And I started training after a triangle at that point, so I started like added a session in. And then again, I think there was another phase where that happened again when I was 16 and I got selected. Well, probably just before I got selected for the team, and it was Hellwood. I started going to Hellwood because I was fighting. I was competing against quite a lot of the lads. There was James McGollian and Dave Campbell who were sort of within my peer group, and you were making semi-finals, and they were who you were fighting. You're like, these lads live 15 minutes away. And at the time when I was in Kirby, I was the oldest by like 3 years. So like you also start to notice there's a big gap between a 13-year-old and a 16-year-old. So I started going there, and again it was like, I mean, obviously you've trained. I think you were in and out at the time.
I was probably there,
Yeah.
I remember training with you at that point.
Yeah. And obviously there was lots of lads who were all older than me, and it was class. I loved it. We did doing loads of sparring. But it was like going to squad every week. Every week, and it was I loved, and it was sort of like, okay, this is the level that you can actually go at. And I think obviously when I decided to leave Kirby, I was torn between the Red Triangle or Halewood, and I was like, well, I can train at both, but I thought that's what I want all the time. So that become like the 3 times a week, and I think there was a phase after that where it literally felt like training on a Wednesday was harder than doing squad, because you just had, again, I was the youngest of the group, and then everyone was 2, 3, 4 years older, all England squad members, and we sort of all got squirreled away, and we do loads of work, so you just got put through.
Because you used to do the extra hour as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
On a Thursday, I remember going, and it was like 7 till 9, and then like he closed the class off, and then like from about 9 to 10 o'clock,
Yeah.
that was it.
And
then
then
you're
like
back at it again.
The
Yeah,
sports and the staff come like, get out, because like you're just like, oh no, you aren't leaving. I'm just gonna keep you there till somebody fights. It was but like it builds it builds a mentality of like, makes you fit, makes you strong. You learn to fight tired, and it's obviously, whether it's from a Kumite perspective or kata, like doing kata. I personally think kata trains harder than Kumite. If you train hard, like you said,
100%, 100%.
Like you said with basics, you can train and you can do basics, or you can do you can do your key on and you can go for it.
Yeah.
And if you go hard, it's exhausting. That's why people that's why people die in gradings. It's not the Kumite, it's the issue. It's all the key on at the start of it, because it's so intense. And like I say, kata is exactly the same. If you're giving it 100%, because you constantly need focused stances and powerful moves,
there's no hiding place, is there, with kata and Keon? There's no hiding place whatsoever.
No, you can't just bounce on tired or just bounce and move back if somebody comes at me. You can get away with it for Kumite. It's very explosive, but it's all in bursts. Like I say, kata. I really enjoy doing kata training. Partly because of that, and obviously it's different, and you can obviously continually develop that. Especially once you're not doing competition in a weird way, you can go, let's develop it to sort of make me better, as opposed to like for competition. It shifts. Obviously, you haven't stopped doing sort of kata in competition. Your approach becomes a little different to it.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I actually enjoy kata.
Yeah.
A hell of a lot more now than I ever did. Now, going back to what you've just said, you've just touched on something there. You know, I actually felt like another point in sort of the journey, so to speak, of karate is once I stopped competing. Obviously, I had the injuries, so probably didn't train as much. But once I was able to train again, and I had gone past the injuries, I think I enjoyed being a student again. But I actually felt like I was relearning.
Yeah.
Lots of things, and it wasn't just about being a competitor and being a point scoring competitor. As long as I score before that other person, then something's going right. Whereas again, going down the road of kata, it needs to be better every single time. It always feels like it's never right in a lot of ways, And this is one thing I've always noticed about people. I'll call them kata specialists, so to speak. They're all so obsessive on making it better.
Yeah.
And I suppose you have to be. I can understand that one completely.
It all has to be better. That's the thing. Like you say with Kuma, if you're good at one thing and you can nail it, that's gonna that in itself probably gonna, maybe not everybody, but that's gonna get you through a lot. And obviously nobody's good at just one thing. You're obviously good at a lot of things. So, but like you say, kata's like really everything needs to be right, because as soon as you do one little thing, it's a mistake.
It exposes
it. That when it's close, that little tiny thing. Well, if you're doing that, somebody else isn't. Straight away, like that little foot movement, it's just you gotta be right on it. I think, like you say, like it's one thing is looking ahead, and like when I stop competing, that's gonna be a real shift, because obviously I'm probably focused. Although like I've done gradings and again I've done kata competitively and so on. So I've done like a very complete trade, but obviously very focused at the end of it. You go like every year it's Europeans, Worlds, Nationals. They're sort of like the 2 to 3 big things that you're always working towards. It'd be interesting when like that does stop, to sort of go, okay, what's the plan now? I mean, I'll probably maybe look at opening a club. I just think right now you can't. Again, I think it's very difficult to run a club and compete. Like the point you made before about training, you're running a club, it's hard to train.
That's the thing. I mean, I would say going back to what you just said there, I think I stopped competing early, 23, 24, especially when I got injured. I went back for a year, tops, about 26, and then the other knee went. That was definitely the end at that point. But even that was a definite sign. But I had the club at that point, and it was like, it's time to focus on the club. It's not about me now. It's about the club and making sure that is as best as it can be. So I agree with that. I think it needs a very specific timeline as to what you can achieve.
I remember sort of having a bit of conversation with John Bruce, and I was young. I say young, like 18, 19, and it was after we'd lost to Germany, and it was like obviously like Johnson, like they all do karate full time, and I was like and I was like, well, you do karate, and he was like, do karate, and he was like, yeah, but obviously he's like, I teach, whereas they are full time competitors, and actually as soon as he said that, I went, no, that's very right, because in theory, I probably train more than you, because I go and train 3-4 nights a week.
It's two very different things.
Whereas you're probably teaching 5-6 days a week.
Yeah.
When are you meant to? How many people go? You can train in a day, and you go, well, where are you going to do competitive kumite training in the day? Unless you know somebody else who also happens to be full time, who's good, who you can train. You go, obviously, that's a very select group. Like if I went full time tomorrow, I mean, obviously I don't know what I'm supposed to do yourself. So it's a little bit different there, a little bit different. So, but like if you went, who competes, who I could go and train with at any time of the day, you go like, nobody.
No.
It's just
that's it.
With that, or if there is, you've got to then start really traveling. Which again, if you're trying to train 3, 4, 5 days a week, you go like, that's not sustainable. You can do the gym, you can do lots of things to keep you fit and strong, but suppose that like you need to be doing. If you want to go to karate, you have to be doing karate.
No, 100%. Like, I don't think there's any substitute for it. It's
no.
You know, you can be as fit as you want. You can do any other sport you like. There's nothing like karate training.
Yeah, these supplements.
Yeah,
like
I've been supplements, but there's nothing like it.
I go to the gym. If I want to be fit, I probably hit the gym hard.
Yeah.
Because that I can gain me cardio and then do a lot of tactical stuff at the dojo. But yeah, like I mean, like I say, you can't go, oh well, I just want to do karate for 3 weeks and I'll just smash the gym, and you go, oh, what's the point?
It won't.
Like,
it's
not the same. Yeah. You've got to be doing. Again, you have to.
Got to be
karate.
doing it. Yeah, you've got to be doing it all the time.
100%.
I like this question because I think it can open people's minds up. If you could take one thing and make karate better, what would you do? But also, if you could take one thing out of karate to make it better, what would you do?
I think the takeout's quite easy. It's probably more of a change. And this might not be karate everywhere, but definitely with England, the political side of it is a mess. Obviously, anyone who does karate is probably well aware of how it is, and just make that more, I say, unified and like much more transparent and open. I think that would definitely help to like open the borders to allow people to compete elsewhere and train elsewhere. Obviously, just to allow that like level of competition. Obviously, a lot of the time you end up competing against us, which, don't get me wrong, sure would happen even if it was one big thing. You'd just be maybe slightly different people that would always end up competing against each other. But that's fair enough. But I think that would definitely broaden the horizons for a lot of people. If I could add one thing, and this probably actually sounds probably in a very similar vein, in the KGB, I'd probably look at doing like an invitational tournament where you can, again, whether that's a case of inviting people within England or put it out a bit like there's a JK Open, which is obviously run as like an international, and obviously you could get people over, so it's not Esker, not Whisker, but you go like, well, okay, yeah, like obviously if Italy, if you want to come over or like send a team over, I think obviously that'd be something that'd be quite add, and obviously give people who aren't quite on the international scene a better taste of international competition, because you're not just fighting against the people you compete against at the Shotokan Cup or the Nationals. So the Grand Slams, it is international in that sense because you have to be on squad, but it very much feels still like a domestic tournament. Yeah. Because it is a lot of the same people. I think there was a way of encouraging that. Easy said, not so easy done. I'm well aware. Like, it's all well and good. You can open the doors, but nobody might come.
Well, that's the next thing, isn't it?
The side of that. What about yourself?
Again, the easy one is always the political side of things of karate. You know, it's been political for as far as, you know, I can remember. You know, the good thing about when you're a kid is you don't see that side of things. No. You don't see it, which is a good thing. But when you know, obviously as you grow up, you start to see it a little bit. And, you know, I would probably, you know, agree with you on taking that away. Yeah, I would say obviously, you know, even if everyone stuck to their own thing, so to speak, but could come together, like you just said, that is a definite positive, and I think it would definitely benefit everyone in the long run. I think a lot of the problem with well, I wouldn't say a problem with karate, so to speak, is I feel like there can be closed-mindedness. I would take that away with regards to
this is how it's done. Let's not change it.
Not even that. I mean, I've heard people before, say things like, oh well, why would I train with them? Because I've been doing karate for over 30, 40 years. I would, at the end of the day, you can learn from anyone. So at the end of the day, if you're not willing to train with someone else, or take something away from someone else, I think you're only doing yourself out of something there.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I'm a great believer in that you can learn literally from anyone.
Yeah.
You can learn from anyone. You can take something away from everyone.
I suppose
as
your
long as you
light
open
bulb
your
moment
mind.
you said, if you'd have gone back and said to 17-year-old Chris, you're going to go to Hellwood, Steve Hattle's going to take the session, and you're going to work on Sotsuki Yakuzuki, you going tonight? You probably like, no.
At the time, 100%.
Yeah, 'cause you would've went,
100%.
"No, I'm not
I'd
going
go, I'm
for
not
that."
working on Sotsuki punch.
Yeah.
In my mind, as a 17-year-old, I'd have gone, well, not that it's beyond me, so to speak, but I want to do this.
Yeah, you would have
And
went,
wouldn't have found its benefits at that time.
Yeah, whereas obviously then you turn up, you've done it, and
you go, right,
you get this
that was probably
epiphany that you weren't expecting.
And I would say that again, a lot of the things with karate, that would be the one thing I took away more than is like a closed-mindedness with regards to I'm a such and such dan, so there's no way I'm going to train with them because I must know more than them. Sometimes again, and I always think like this. You can have a third dan who's trained 4 or 5 days a week for the last 7, 8 years, and you might have a sixth dan who trains once a month.
You do a course.
Builds it up a little. Yeah, they do the course and then they build up 6 months before the grading.
Yeah.
Who's the real sixth dan there? And I'm not being, I don't mean. Sometimes, like I said, I can't really speak so much in respect of like saying, well, they're not training much. Being a full-time instructor, that's what I do as an instructor. I try and train, but obviously I can only do so much. But at the same time, I did, like I say, going back to it, it's the closed-mindedness side of things that I would definitely take away.
So if you don't leave your comfort zone, you'll never know what's out there.
Well, it's easy to say I'm better than someone else. It's easy to say that, isn't it? But to stand in front of someone,
if you are better than somebody, you can still learn from them.
Well, exactly. And I think that
like obviously there's a lot of, again, even if you looked at it like physically, an instructor might not be as good as a student. Physically, they might not be, because obviously there's probably this massive age gap.
Yeah.
Which obviously with age comes like sort of the athleticism, but that doesn't mean that there isn't something that they can pass on. That's what I mean. You've got a lot of football match. Don't know. Some of them were high level professionals. Yeah. A lot of them aren't. A lot of them, they play professional, but they're not like super high level.
If you look at the best managers in football, you were never top line. Really, very rarely top line footballers.
World class ref, not ref, sorry, world class coach.
Yeah.
Or manager, but they weren't.
But didn't quite make it at the
obviously,
Klopp. Classic example.
Yeah. So
Alex Ferguson.
Yeah, your skill level doesn't necessarily translate into like your knowledge or what you can pass on. And obviously, you learn. Like so you start teaching, you learn new things. And obviously, like you say, you can just get that from other people from there.
What I would add in, honestly, is financial support, right across the board. And what I mean by that is, not because I'm a full-time instructor that I'm saying, oh, well, financial support. At the end of it, it's not. I don't mean financial support for me. I mean, like, even financial support for events, financial support for, people who compete. If you imagine we could, sponsor events for absolutely everything without having to worry about, the finance side of things. Because I look at like, the KGB in Scotland, for example. It's completely, it's supported by the KGB as it should be, and as it is. But imagine you could take this, the stress away of the finance being one of the issues. Well, and again, England probably has it as well. England's got a very big and a very strong team, but money only takes it so far.
Definitely.
So sometimes it might be the case that there might be 3 people and you can only pick one from them, but all 3 equally deserve to go.
Yeah.
You know, if there was a sponsor there where you could go, well, you know what, we could take them to as well. And,
Yeah.
you know, little things like that where them three have worked equally as hard. And it might be one or two results in competition that changes the scope of things, but all three could equally do well away. You know, that sort of thing. I would.
Yeah, I think it's probably trying to find some outside investors, because I can't speak for every. Like, I know the KGB typically fund much better than a lot of other associations.
Oh, 100%. The one thing I can say, I've benefited. Like, you know, I've never been abroad. I've never been abroad before the KGB took me away, and then all of a sudden I'm all over the world: Cyprus, Switzerland, America, Mexico, Poland. You name it. You name it. Some fantastic places that I maybe never would have been to, even if I could go. But you know, that was, you know, I would say financially, in respect of the KGB, how it does things is very
selfless in that way.
100%. 100%.
I do know what you mean in that. Like, if there was an easier way to get sponsored, I suppose, whether that's like individually or if the association could obviously get it, so that like even not necessarily for like the direct competitors like myself, say, I think like we've got regional squads, and if there was a way of financing, supporting them financially, which maybe could allow for additional tournaments, maybe like regional squad tournaments and so on and so forth, I suppose. Like I say, it's easy said. It's obviously finding the investment, and obviously how are you gonna pay them back? Obviously, like, it's all well and good. I mean, obviously you go to West and you can't have nothing on your gear, can you?
No.
Because obviously that's the obvious thing. Normally sponsors, they only stick the logo on you straight away. That's a no.
I mean, you know what, I do agree with that as well, though. You know, there's one thing I do agree with. You know, I don't want to go on that area looking like an advertisement board. Yeah, I mean,
it's obviously where's that trade off.
Again, the one thing I do love, again, about the, you know, show whip on style of karate is it's kept its sort of tradition of how it was. And don't get me wrong, I don't think there's anything wrong with going down the road of, you know, if you want to go down the sponsorship road, and, you know, WKF, for example, I know they're quite big on sponsorships, aren't they? And, you know, I don't know, they're going down the road of, I don't know if I read this right or not, a red and blue gi. I might be wrong.
I don't know. I know they now, it's now compulsory for like international events to do obviously they have like the red and blue shoulder stripes. So essentially you need two gis when you compete.
Well, I might have read it wrong, but I think they might be changing. I hope I'm wrong, because I hope it's still a white karate suit, but I think they might be changing it to red and blue. I might be wrong, and I hope I am on that. But you know, again, I don't think there's anything particularly wrong in going down that field if it's going to benefit karate in the long run, so to speak. Yeah. You know, as long as we can keep sort of them traditions. But I think the traditions, like I said, I like the idea of white karate suits, because that's all I've ever known.
I think most people would, won't they? I mean, I'm not even keen on black ones, to be fair.
No.
It just reminds me of Cobra Kai and Karate Kid.
Only parents are keen on black karate suits, easy to wash.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
The amount of times I've had the parents say, why do you wear black karate suits? They're easier to wash.
You end up like, you just end up all drawn out.
Yeah,
you stay black.
You go to grey, yeah.
I think maybe we'll just do a couple more. We'll probably have to wrap up. Coming up to like, we're probably over an hour. We've definitely done more than an hour. That little bit we lost.
yeah, we've definitely went well over an hour there.
Yeah. So I mean, I think I've got one that I think we can probably finish on. So we've got down, and this is one you suggested, it was like sort of, and again, however we'll break this down, everyone, was your sort of your all-star team. If you can pick, however you can pick the number, your playbook on that. I'll let you add to it.
I've thought about this question a lot. A top five, and I was thinking, you know, top five, and you know, originally I was thinking top five because of the, you know, a men's team international is a top five-man team. And I was thinking, you know, we would be a five.
Suppose if you pick five, is that with a reserve? You got to put yourself in.
Oh, I'm going in. I'm definitely going in. Maybe in the safe number 3. Maybe in the safe 3, wherever that goes. But yeah, well, obviously the obvious one, competitive-wise, is Frank Brennan. Yeah. You know, he'd have to be in my team, 100%. Again, I've said before, I more or less had the perfect, you know, felt like we had the perfect team at the time, which was me, Matt, John, Duffy, and Michael Davison. You know, we had a you know,
a winning team.
It's a winning time, you know. So when I think about that team, for me, that was perfect in a lot of ways. But then I think, you know, a fantasy team, for example, you know, say we got points for whoever, then I think Frank would be one of them. I always, well, again, just from a sentimental point of view, I would always like to have been in the same team as Dave Eaton.
Okay.
I just from a pure, you know,
It was class days, weren't it?
you know, again, I remember him from a kid. He was sort of my first sort of role model. I remember coming in the club. He was late because he used to work, but he used to come in the club, and he had the England overgee, the blue one, you know, the original one. I remember him coming in. He had the Camy Premier gi on, and he always looked smart. He had the Reebok boots, which were the best thing I'd ever seen. I loved them. I've still got a pair myself. And I remember him coming into training, and when he was there, it just all of a sudden got serious because of how good he was. He was electric, you know, and how he used to train. So I always looked up to him. So he'd definitely go in my team. Again, that's three of us. Duffy would be number 4. Definitely Duffy number 4, because again we had a good relationship in the team from junior right the way through, and we shared the room together. So you know, and we won everything together as well. So he was always sort of.
I think with Duffy as well, you stick him 5 and like
always
right, we need something to happen here.
Yeah, and he always
Duffy
made
was like fireworks, where he like
he was the original Callum Wilson. He was Callum Wilson before Callum Wilson was there. You know, that's exactly what Duffy was.
He
you know,
you could just like, what's he gonna do? I don't know.
What's he gonna do? I don't know, but something is definitely gonna happen.
Yeah, it's gonna look.
Something is definitely gonna happen at that point. Number five. I mean, I'm trying to think of past years and, you know, just things I've seen, and purely from what I've seen, and this was, I'd never seen him live. It was Kagawa. I would go with Kagawa. Purely based on the World Championships when he won it in 91 or 1991. You know, watched that. I used to watch that video all the time. I used to watch, you know, when Britain beat Japan. And obviously by fight 3, Britain had already won. Yeah. But then Kagawa came up and it was like a sort of a hybrid. Like it was Maigeri, Yoko-geri, and I don't quite know what it was, but whatever it was, just put Ronnie Canning in half. And I remember him just quite casually walking around the area as if to say, well, all right, we might have just lost, but here's me, here I am, sort of thing. So I think he would definitely fit number 5. And then I remember his kata. I think he come up against Frank Brennan for runner-up. So they both got up to do their kata again, and I think Frank won to come second. Kagawa got up and done this Sochin, and it was so almost casual. I remember seeing it thinking, wow, but the power he generated in his technique as well. Yeah, like it was weird to see that sort of kata flow the way he did. Like it was so relaxed but so powerful in certain ways, and I thought, you know, even though he never won, so to speak, it was still very much a quality karateka. And I have trained with him once, and even then you could still feel it there. You know? Again, it's like when you go to, like for the first time I ever went to squad, and you know, Frank was stood there at the beginning of the junior squad, and he used to stand there doing this Yoko-geri, but he'd stay in Yoko-geri, and he'd be looking around and talking, and he'd just stay there, and I'd just be looking, going, wish I could do that.
Yeah, a lot of young kids don't realise like probably how different. It's weird like how squads changed. For me, I've been on squad for like 60, probably 17th year this year. So it's obviously, and it's changed a lot. Gone from like obviously the red triangle, doing it there, to like a sports hall, a mixed class instead of a junior and senior sort of sessions. Like you say, like Frank Brennan's obviously he's had like back surgery, hasn't he? Obviously, if you think he's good now, he still is. Ridiculous. He's still ridiculous. It was different then. Like you say, there was just like them Yoko-geri, Jodan Yoko-geri held for like
pure power, pure control, and pure
not
power.
Like not a placed one. It was like
it never got placed nicely. It went out with power and it stopped.
And he stood there talking away, telling us all how we should be able
He'd be kicking there and turning around going, "This is what you need to be doing."
Yeah.
I might try that at knee height. Maybe chew that.
Slowly.
So that's my top. And by the way, I could have had an unbelievable amount of people But when I think back of memorable things and stuff like that, then you know, them four, including myself, that would be a team I'd like to have been part of. You know, again, I could pick 10 other people. To be honest, there's that many.
I think it's hard. It's hard. I had the thing about it. It's very hard to sort of whittle it down.
So what's your 5?
Again, I suppose it's very hard to look past Frank Brennan, isn't it? So, I mean, I had him here. I'm not putting him in because it's too obvious.
But it's also impossible.
Then it's also I've trained not under him. I've trained with him. Like when I started training, he was training for a couple of years still. So like he was leaps and bounds ahead of me. So I was only 13. But I've sparred with him, and it was just like, how can you not? So obviously I'd have him. In there. I'd probably put Matt Price in. When I first started competing, he was the man in like sort of KGB.
He really was. He really was.
Well, he was like grand champion. He was winning both, but like his Kumite was again at the time the best I'd ever seen. He was the best we had. So I'd probably have him in there because obviously like just looking back.
An absolute hard worker. Karate brilliance as well. Absolute hard worker. You know, he was good again. I think probably the only reason I never put him in my team really is because I was in the team with him. You know. And being honest, being in the team with him, I was very lucky because again, he was very good to me. He was very, very good to me in the team. Actually, you know, even little things sometimes. You know, he just say the right things at the right time. You know, I remember someone dropping me, and they landed on top of me. You know, so they sort of we end up in the clash, and he sort of threw me over the shoulder, but he didn't just throw me. He landed on, and he come down on me, and I was like, and he was heavy. And I was there, like, and I think Matt seen me. I was getting a little bit not flustered, you know. I just couldn't work me around this fight. So I think I was working in my head too much. And he just said, "Just relax." That's all you. Just relax. Calm down, relax, and wait for it. And next thing, this lad threw him a washigiri, bang. I got a nip on for the Chudang Yakuzuki. And again,
I've got a feeling is that.
I think it's on the intro.
The point.
So I got a nip on for that.
It's a good point.
Yeah. Well, that you know, you'd hardly ever heard anyone get a nip on for a Chudang punch. But that was that moment. I remember feeling like, you know, again, Matt was like, just relax, just calm down now, relax, take it easy, and then go again. I was like, okay.
Yeah. So obviously, I did probably 2. I think I again trying not to put people in. It's weird because obviously I did like 1 year with you, 1 year with John. It's sort of like do I, don't I? I've done a long time with Ryan, but Ryan's always sort of captained the team when I was in it. Maybe especially like once I was senior, because again a lot of, like I say, when I did it with like yourself and John, I was junior. It was sort of people just in and out, whereas we had pretty much the same team for quite a while. And Ryan is a very good fighter, obviously. Anyway, he's also extremely good at like getting the team fired up. And like and getting that going. So I think between that and he got the job done. So anyone who's
classic at getting the job done.
Ryan being not the flashiest fighter, but like, you need the win. The win comes in. You need the Nippon team to come in. You just sort of always did exactly what needed to happen. So I think I'll probably go with that.
That's a good choice as well. I can go with that all day.
I think after, again, I could point to loads of people, like loads of really good people have done it with. So I'm start stepping out of those. I'd probably start moving out of the country. I think I'd like Victor Arnaud from Belgium. I'd like. Again, phenomenal fight. Obviously, Belgian coach now. But I say that, and he's not that old. He's not much older than me. I think he's probably similar age.
He's round about the same. Well, I fought him in 2003 in Sunderland in the Europeans. In the semi-final, he beat me, and I think he won it that time, because I think he may have. I think he did win it. He beat me in the semi-final, and I think he ended up winning it. Now, again, previous to that, he got in the final against John Bruce in the Worlds in 2003.
I think John won that one.
John won. But Victor was always there or thereabouts. I think I fought him once or twice, and absolutely.
I've
great
fought
fighter.
I've only fought him the once, and it was in the team. We ended up drawing. Luckily, we managed to beat Belgium. We actually won that year. It was in 2016. but he's obviously won he's won the JKA Europeans. I think he's won the world. He's definitely won the Europeans a number of times.
Yeah.
Again, probably not very flash when he does it, but that's not like his style. Very reserved, but like
he had good movement, didn't he?
Yeah, and southpaw as well.
Yeah, he had a good movement about him.
Yeah, good timing. Like he had like just a really good Yakuzuki, but like could use it either.
Done it well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was sharp with it as well, wasn't he?
Yeah.
If you could go on, I was always sort of held back. I'd counter on mine, and that's probably where the style suited him better. He went on the attack with his, and obviously if he's the initiating that sort of attack, that's where he's going to score first. So again, I can fully appreciate, he's got that sharp action with him.
Yeah. And then again after that, there's plenty of people. There's a couple.
Yeah, it could go on, couldn't it?
There's a couple of Russian lads who I'm kind of like, but then it's very difficult to pick out of them. So I'm like, do you know what? I just won't. I'll take a step back and not. Actually, this might seem like a bit of a curveball. He's not been on our circuit, but probably Stefan. Apologies for saying his name wrong. Porkney from Austria.
From Austria, yeah.
Yeah. So he's in the WKF circuit now, and he's done pretty well. Like he's obviously ranked in the top 10 for the -67. But when I first come up, he's the same age as me, so we did basically a lot of our under-21 career together.
Yeah.
He's probably unfortunate. Austria didn't have a particularly good. Didn't have a bad team. That's the wrong way. But we didn't have like a strong team. Whereas like England had a strong team. But he individually was very good. And again, he was the type of person who he'd get through fights. Yeah. He just found a way to just get through people. So again, like I think that'd be a great sort of.
Can we have a reserve? Can we have a reserve?
Go on.
I'm going to put myself in reserve here and put this down in. Shane Dorfman.
Oh, I know when I said that, Gwen, I'll have to say, I'm not going reserve though, no.
I'll take a reserve. I'll take the coach position. Shane Dorfman. Shane Dorfman on 2005 alone. I remember seeing him in that world final. Wow. Well, I've seen him at the whole world championships. And I think I was in the back at the time. We were basically, when we were in Chicago, they asked Frank to do a demonstration, but obviously Frank needed people to punch and kick in the head, and I was one of them. I think it was me, Duffy and John, and I think we were practicing in the back, and the men's team was on at the time. Oh sorry, the men's individuals was on at the time, and he fought Christian Gerner in the final. And I'd never seen anything like it before. The kicks were phenomenal. I've never seen like the power in them, and this, to be honest with you, this goes to show that again the toughness of Christian Gerner. He could have easily went down off any one of them shots, and sort of took the disqualification win, and he never. I've never seen anyone take a shot like it, and he just sort of shrugged it off, got back to the area. Hip on, and they were hip on as well. I don't think if he'd have gone down and it's something away from it, then it wouldn't have been right. But seeing that performance at the Worlds in 2005 was absolutely out of this world. So I would stick him number 5. Yeah, I would definitely stick him number 5.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I've not seen him like I've seen him doing bits. One back from then, and even now, obviously, like with Facebook, you see like clips from this, so he's still got it.
Quality karate.
Still got it. Yeah. I suppose. To finish, if you didn't do karate, what would you do? I mean, obviously, forget the fact that it's your job, but as a hobby.
What would I like to do? I would like to have cycled.
Yeah.
In lockdown, I did. Bought a bike, a really cheap one. 12 years old, something like that. So I thought, well, I need to lose a bit of weight because obviously, with teaching all the time and not really training much, I was putting weight on ridiculous weights. I'm probably not looking after myself. And the lockdowns happened, so I got myself a bike. And it started off like 10-mile rides every other day and building up to 20 to 30. And before I was going out on Friday morning and doing like 50, 60 miles. So I would definitely probably want to be a cyclist if I could. If it wasn't karate, I'd probably take up cycling. Yeah. Okay. Because I enjoy it.
Yeah.
What about you?
I'm just mad for combat sports, mate.
Yeah.
Like
I'm not, believe it or not. I like boxing, but that's it.
No, I think. I mean, When I thought I'd do CrossFit. Like that would suit me because like when I go to the gym, that's the type of stuff I do. I don't do kicking pull-ups or nothing, but like I do those type of sort of circuits. And then I went actually, I know exactly where if I wasn't doing like MMA as a whole, okay, I'd probably do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And if I had the time, I'd do that now.
Yeah.
Like, but
move into that.
Again, it's just sort of like between having a baby and doing the karate, which then dictates. Again, it's like that full-time conversation. Obviously, you can't just go and do certain things whenever you want. Yeah. You have to do it obviously like an evening essentially. So I don't quite have that time. And my first love was karate, but definitely would do that. So yeah, I think that's what I'd like say. Just any combat sport, in honest, would probably would have cut it. But that's probably the one that if I could start one now, that's what I'd do.
Two totally separate sports there then. Yeah, I'd probably come away and just do the cycling.
Yeah.
I mean, like
I can't do like any long cardio. Bores me. Yeah. I go for a run on the basis of like I should.
Should have got to, yeah.
Should, because to keep me fit.
To be honest, I've tried the running thing, and you know, don't get me wrong. I got as well as a 10k at one point, but you know, compared to cycling, especially, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, oh yeah, I'd go out in January weather or February weather and go and cycle 50 miles. It's not happening.
In the middle of June. It's
nice. in the middle of June if it's hot. You know, like I said, you know, in lockdown we went out with John McGorian and Jay.
Yeah.
There was a few of us went out on the bikes. That was quite fun. That was quite good, like. But that's about the extent of my cycling career. As long as it's hot and relaxing, then I'm up for it.
Fair enough. I think. I mean, we could probably talk
another hour or so.
I mean, we were talking before we started, and we could put the world to right. We could from that
easily
if we wanted. But I think that might do us. I think obviously for everyone listening, if you've enjoyed it, obviously make sure you hit us up on all the different socials. There's not much out there yet, but Facebook, we're on Insta. There's even a TikTok, although there's nothing on there at the minute. Actually, that might be.
I didn't know there was a TikTok.
There is, yeah. The intro is also on TikTok. I thought I'll do the one.
Okay.
The only thing we haven't got to Twitter, which we could sort if we want.
There is a strong rumour in the club that I have got a TikTok. Sam made that up, but
well, technically you do now. Usually to sign in. It's better than you think, you know.
Is it?
Yeah. It's better than you think.
Yeah,
everything
I know I'm getting old.
Everything you see on Instagram now, it was on TikTok 2 weeks ago. That's basically how it works now. Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah. And like I'm old because there's what is it, Be Real? That's like a different one again. I'm like, I'm not getting into that.
No, not yet.
That seems like a right hair and all of that. Yeah. But yeah, we are going to be on all that, so make sure you follow, like. Obviously there'll be future episodes. We have got some guests planned, not necessarily booked, although we might have the first guest booked, but I won't put a date or a name on it just in case.
To be confirmed.
But I think we have sort of confirmed a few people, such as Ryan Tucker, Greg Hegarty, just in case anyone's not sure.
So we've got to say another full name, haven't we? Ryan Tucker,
Jack Summers,
Dave Royal.
Yeah, Dave Royal. And there are others in the pipeline. We're just obviously waiting to hear back and sort of pin that down. Plenty of others planned that we would like to do. So hopefully we can sort of get that, and you can get their insight on the types of questions we've been asking each other, and their take on the karate world. So yeah, like I say, if you've enjoyed it, obviously make sure you hit those like buttons, subscribe, follow. We're also on YouTube. So. But no, thanks very much, Chris. Nice one, man.
Thank you very much, John.